Since June 1, which is really the demarcation period for the Braves when they took off, the Mets have been playing at a 100-win pace, and yet the Braves have just about caught them. That's why I don't think you can say that the Mets blew this thing if they don't win the division. Tim Kurkjian covers baseball for ESPN. And Tim, before we get to all the baseball, first off, how are you doing this week?
I'm good, Buster. I did a game last night in Houston. Didn't get much sleep. I got more sleep than you did as normal, but all's good.
Well, and I'm going to ask you about that in just a second. But first, I want you to weigh in on the whole Harry Styles, Chris Pine thing. Which way do you fall in terms of what happened on that?
Well, you're going to have to explain who each one of those guys is, please.
Sarah, you want to jump in here?
Oh, do I? I can explain all of this. So should I start from the beginning or just
Well, Harry
Spitgate?
Styles is someone who's relatively well known in the music industry. Yes, Sarah?
Yes, and he is
Chris?
now making his way into acting.
Okay, and Chris Pine is an actor, and there's a question. Go ahead, Sarah. You can present the question to him.
So there's been major drama throughout this whole movie premiere cycle for their movie Don't Worry, Darling. And at the premiere, there is a question if whether or not Harry Styles spit on Chris Pine.
What do you think, Tim?
Buster, you told me you were going to throw a curveball at the beginning. You've thrown more curveballs than Lance McCullers Jr. Why would you ask me this? Last night on the broadcast, I was telling him about the closer for the Twins named Duran and the third baseman for the Rangers named Duran. We almost had a Duran matchup, and Roxy Bernstein took off with all this musical reference. I didn't even understand what he was talking about. And now you throw this at me. Why? Why would you? You just want to make me look stupid about pop culture, which I have confirmed 1,000 times. I just found out who Bad Bunny was at the Little League World Series. I got killed for that. Now
All
I'm
right.
going to get killed for this.
All right. So promise me that when our podcast taping is over, that you go and dig into the question of whether or not Harry Styles spit on Chris Pine on purpose. What do you think?
All right. Well, now I have to go watch it. I mean, the last time you did this to me, Will Smith got slugged by whatever happened, and I was talking to the real Will Smith in the Braves clubhouse. That's how clueless I was that morning. This is so bad when you ambush me. I look even worse than normal.
And for the record, it was Will Smith who slugged
Right.
Chris Rock.
Right. Sorry. I can't even get it straight. And those are two huge guys in the industry. Sorry.
Okay, I'll give you a more obscure question that I know you're going to know the answer to. This is a Bleacher tweet from Doug Steiner, who asked, "Watching Blue Jays and Orioles, can Tim explain Earl Weaver's connection to tomatoes?"
Yeah, Earl Weaver was really good at growing things, okay? And Pat Santarone, who was the head groundskeeper at Memorial Stadium a million years ago, great guy, Pat Santarone. He used to grow tomatoes also. So they had a competition between Pat Santarone and Earl Weaver who could grow the best tomatoes. So Earl told me a few stories about that he was always better than Santarone, even though Santarone said he was better than Earl. But to me, at least this is my understanding, that was the genesis of it, a competition between the groundskeeper and the third greatest manager of all time.
So, did you ever wade through the tomatoes out there?
I saw the tomatoes. And again, the tomatoes were a little bit before me, Buster. That was mid 70s, early 70s. I got there briefly late 70s, early 80s. But yes, I saw Earl's tomatoes and they were really good. And I saw Santarone's tomatoes. They were really good too. I would say Santarone was better than Earl at tomatoes, but not by much.
You did see also the Astros on Monday. And I feel like, because we talk so much about the Yankees, we talk about the National League East race, we don't give the Astros enough credit. You saw them on Monday. How well prepared for this do you think this team is for October?
They're really good, Buster. They went into last night with a 2.98 ERA, which is basically by far the best in the American League. And then they threw their 13th shutout. Last night, they went into last night with a 2.13 batting average against, and then allowed 4 base runners against the Rangers. Their pitching is great. Their bullpen was tremendous. Brian Abreu came in last night and was throwing 100 with a slider from hell. It was ridiculous how good their pen was last night. But the big thing was that Hunter Brown started that game. He pitched 6 scoreless innings. He breezed through the first 3 innings, allowed 1 base runner who got wiped out on a caught stealing. He throws upper 90s with a great curveball, with a really good slider at 94, 95 with a slider. It was ridiculous. So last night, James Click told us the story about, I asked him, what's the first time you saw Hunter Brown? And he said, well, he was we had drafted him. He came in and he was showing some of our people what he's got. And one of the pitching coaches said, all right, you got anything else? And Hunter said, yeah, I got this curveball, but my high school coach wouldn't let me throw it because the catcher couldn't catch it. And so the pitching coach said, well, let's take a look at it. So he threw this ridiculously hard-breaking power curveball, and it was so good, the pitching coach said, throw another one of those. And he kept throwing them. So now he's added this curveball to the repertoire. And the point here, Buster, is let's say this kid is as good as he was last night. Suddenly, he's in play to pitch in the postseason for the Astros. And assuming Justin Verlander comes back, and he told me yesterday, he said, I certainly hope I'll be back. So I took that as a yes. They're going to take 2 really good starting pitchers and put them in the bullpen. That's how deep their rotation is. And now they added Hunter Brown, who, again, if he keeps throwing like this, he has to be on the playoff roster. That stuff plays anywhere. That stuff plays in the playoffs. So the rich get richer, elite defensive team, best pitching in the American League. And even though they're not a great offensive team, they're a good offensive team.
You and I have seen enough baseball to know that being the favorite guarantees nothing. But as we sit here today with 4 weeks to go in the regular season, I don't think there's any question when we get into the American League playoffs, the Astros are going to be the favorite, yes?
They're going to be the heavy favorites when they go in. And that's nothing against the other teams. The Astros are that good. As you know, Buster, they got to 80 victories in fewer games than any Astros team in franchise history. And they've had some pretty good teams there. I think this team is built really well. I'm not sure about what they're doing in left field without Michael Brantley for the season. We're not sure what they're doing in center field, but their offense from their infield is so good. Jose Altuve is really running well, by the way. 14 steals this year, wow. 13 steals the last 3 years combined. And I watched him run first to third last night. That's as well as I've seen him run in a while. The point is, I think they're loaded, but they're mostly loaded with pitching to the point where, maybe Christian Javier, who had a 13 and a 14 strikeout game back-to-back this year, is going to pitch out of the bullpen in the postseason because he can do that. Maybe Luis Garcia is going to pitch out of the bullpen in the postseason. That's how good their rotation is right now, assuming, of course, Verlander comes back and is healthy.
I was on SportsCenter yesterday, and before we started, the producer asked me the question about, hey, what do you want to talk about with the Mets and Braves? And I want to see if you agree with me on this. We're seeing what's happening with the Yankees. And I think you would agree with me that if the Yankees lose the American League East race, it'll be the greatest collapse in baseball history, correct?
I would say I got to think about 51 and 78, but yeah.
50, and I'm basing that off the numbers. 15.5 game lead has never been blown before.
Right. Yes. That's absolutely true.
And if the Yankees lose the division, that'll be the narrative, the greatest collapse ever. I think the whole Mets-Braves thing is so completely different. I don't think this is the case of the Mets blowing it, Tim. In fact, I looked it up. Since June 1, which is really the demarcation period for the Braves when they took off, the Mets have been playing at 100-win pace, and yet the Braves have just about caught them. That's why I don't think you can say that the Mets blew this thing if they don't win the division.
Absolutely not. The Mets have played exceptionally well all
Yes.
season and especially lately. The Braves are just on. I saw what you tweeted out about what they've been like or whatever since June the 1st. It's absurd how good they have been. And they're better than they were at this time last year. Spencer Strider has added another element to them. And of course, so has Michael Harris II in center field. I really, really like the Braves right now. And I've said this for weeks now, and so have you. That National League playoff is going to be a free for all of the highest order with three elite teams. And I'm not even putting the Cardinals in there yet, and they've been great since August the 1st. So a lot of really good stuff going on in the National League. But the Mets have not given this away. They've just been caught by a red hot team.
Yeah, and I'll give you a reason in a moment why the Cardinals might be even more dangerous than we thought. But first, I want to mention Max Scherzer came out after 67 pitches on Saturday because of fatigue in his left side. He missed 7 weeks early in the year with an oblique injury. He told reporters, you know, Max's personality, I'm fine. He's going to make his next start. Tim, there's no way around this. This is going to be an issue the rest of the year. Yes?
Yeah, remember in the last few years, for a variety of reasons, he's been too fatigued to make a start or finish an inning or something. It's very unlike Max Scherzer to be that way, but he's such a max effort guy, and he's so violent in everything he does on the mound that I always worry, is he going to get hurt again? And that's not to say he's not going to post up in the postseason, because he is. But yes, of course, you have to worry about somebody who goes at it as hard as he does, just like a center fielder who can't stay away from running into the fence. Max Scherzer can't stay away from throwing as hard as he can, seemingly on every pitch, and that's going to lead to some injuries. So yes, even though he says he's fine, is he going to be fine the next time? And more important, is he going to be fine on November 3rd? Because that's when they're going to need him, if they're going to need to win the World Series.
All right. Tell me this year, what award you're going to vote for the Baseball Writers Association, or are you going to vote for any this year?
Yeah, I was assigned the National League Cy Young Award, and I'm not going to discuss it because I'm not supposed to discuss it openly. I have some solid thoughts on that, but even it is changing just a little bit. It was, I thought, kind of a runaway a couple weeks, 3 weeks ago, but maybe not so much a runaway now.
But in your heart of hearts, I'm guessing there's some relief for you that you're not going to be voting for the American League MVP, because it feels like Shohei Ohtani is doing everything he can to complicate it. We know Aaron Judge has been going crazy. You know, he hits his 54th home run yesterday, batting .342 since the All-Star break, carrying the Yankee team. And at the same time, Shohei Ohtani seems to be getting hotter and even better than he was last year. I tweeted this out this morning that since August 4th, Ohtani's batting .327 with 10 homers in 29 games, an OPS of about 1,100. And Tim, in his last 5 starts, he has a 1.74 ERA. I know you told me, and you've been telling me all year, Aaron Judge is the MVP, but especially if the Yankees blow the division, how do you assess that race?
Well, you used a good word there, complicated, because that's what Shohei Ohtani does every day. He complicates the entire equation because we've never seen anyone like him. I'm going to say it again. Anyone who votes for Shohei Ohtani for MVP, I'm good with it. There is zero chance. You can argue with that. But if I had a ballot in my hand, and I wouldn't say I'm relieved that I don't, I would vote for Aaron Judge, because I think as an everyday player, he's had the best season. I don't think the Yankees would be in. I don't think they'd be in the playoffs without him. He has been so good. So that's why I would vote for him. I'm still an old school guy, Buster. Great player, takes his team to the playoffs. Sorry, you're getting extra credit points for me on that. That's not to downgrade anyone who's on a bad team. It's not Shohei Ohtani's fault that they're on. The Angels aren't very good. But I'm going to give extra credit points that Aaron Judge is doing this for a team that is in first place, and he is the biggest reason that they are.
And we talked about the Yankee narrative if they don't win the American League East. If they do win it, Tim, I think part of the narrative around the Yankees could be that Aaron Judge may have single-handedly held them up, propped them up through this race, because how he's performing, especially in recent weeks, while the rest of the team is sliding. I mentioned some of his numbers. He's played now in 42 games since the All-Star break and has 21 homers. Okay. 42 games for Judge, 21 homers. He has an OPS of about 1,300 in those games. A couple days ago, I texted Aaron Boone. I said, boy, how about the way Judge is performing during this slide for you guys? And he sent back one word, incredible. And then I sent him back another one yesterday after home run number 54, and Booney texted back, amazing. That has to be part of this conversation too, yes?
Yes, Buster, what's the note? He scored every run in a series for the Yankees over the weekend. The last guy to do that was Babe Ruth in 1929, okay? And I'm telling you, the voters remember the last thing that they see. Remember Chipper Jones in 1999, how he went absolutely ballistic down the stretch, took the Mets apart by himself. He deserved the MVP anyway, but he won it because of what he did the last month of the season. We remember the last thing that we saw, and people are looking at Judge saying, the Yankees are a one-man team right now. They can't score any runs unless he drives them in or scores them. And that's why I think he's going to get extra credit points, because we're going to look and say, they were this close to losing that lead, but Aaron Judge said, no, we're going to win this division. If they win the division, I think he's going to win the MVP.
I mentioned a good indication for the St. Louis Cardinals. Last night, Jack Flaherty, in a loss to the Washington Nationals, allowed 1 run in 5 innings, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk. And this was the important number for me, Tim, his velocity at 96, 97 miles per hour. What do you make of that?
Well, it's very encouraging for the Cardinals, who become an even better team if that's the Jack Flaherty we're going to see in October. And if he continues to pitch even better, and instead of going 5, he goes 6, 7, 8, even 9. Buster, we can't forget, you did a bunch of his games when he was at his very best. That guy is amazing. As Adam Wainwright told me once, he said, if you want to build a picture of what a baseball player should look like, it would look like Jack Flaherty. I mean, his athletic ability is off the charts as far as, dunking a basketball and doing whatever it takes to be a ball player and an athlete. He's got all of that. Imagine adding him to a Cardinal team that catches it as well as it does, has MVP candidates at first and third base, has found a way to score some runs, and has other pretty darn good pitching on their team. Jack Flaherty would be like adding, it's not Jacob deGrom, but like adding Jacob deGrom to the stretch run if he can be healthy and ramp up those innings.
Yeah, as you know, he was part of that trio of major leaguers who played on the same high school team: Lucas Giolito, Max Fried, Jack Flaherty. And what Ethan Katz told me, who was his pitching coach then, now he's the pitching coach of the White Sox, was that when Jack was in high school, he was a third baseman, and they had to convince him to be a pitcher because he just loved playing third base so much. And I'm not totally convinced that if he had just remained at third base, he could have made the big leagues in that way. And that's because of the great athlete that he is.
Right. And Fried told me, by the way, that when Flaherty was a sophomore, he said, he's the greatest high school pitcher I've ever seen. That's what Max Fried said about Jack Flaherty when he was a sophomore in high school.
All right. So here's the easiest question of the day, besides the Harry Styles question. Okay. Who's going to win the American League Central?
That's impossible. I do the playoff look every single day in my little notebook here where we are. I'm going to say the Guardians are going to win the Central. I have no good reason why, other than I love their starting pitching. I love Bieber. I love Tristan McKenzie. I think if they could get a couple pitchers healthy, I think they can pitch their way in. That doesn't mean the Twins can't win, and it also doesn't mean the White Sox can't win. You made me choose somebody, so I'm going to pick the Guardians, but I don't have a good reason, because that's how close this race is going to go. 3 teams to the final week for sure.
Okay, I'm going to pick the White Sox because I want to salvage the preseason pick that I turned in that I would have abandoned 50 times because they were so disappointing. And yet, because there really aren't any great teams in the division, the White Sox are kind of hanging in there. And oh, by the way, they got the potential American League Cy Young Award winner, Dylan Cease. Lance Lynn looked pretty dang good yesterday. They got a lot of Johnny Cueto's pitched well. They got a lot of talent on that team, which is why everyone's been scratching their head about their performance so far this year.
Right. Lance Lynn's last 4 starts, he's got an ERA just over 1. Johnny Cueto has been ridiculously good for a guy who was supposed to be at the back end of the bullpen. And Dylan Cease almost pitched a no-hitter the other day. So I'm with you that the White Sox, of course, can win the division. So can the Twins. I had to pick somebody, so I picked the Guardians. Tomorrow I'll change my mind because that's how much that division changes day to day.
All right, Tim. Thanks for doing this. And yeah, just text me your thanks whenever you see that Harry Styles video, okay?
Oh, I can't wait. I won't know which one is Harry Styles and which one is Chris Pine. I won't even know who's who until I see the spit or whatever it's called.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, see you. Thank you, Buster.
Yeah. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.